And welcome to, hopefully, a very insightful panel discussion on AI, ESG, and data sovereignty, and unravelling the economic impact of that on digital infrastructure. And in an era where data is the new gold, the way we store, process, and govern information, digital information, is crucial. Data sovereignty, the concept that digital data is subject to the laws of the country in which it's located, has profound implications for the data center and wider digital infra industry, and affecting everything from operational strategies to international relations. And the growth of AI and its use of large language models, which are dependent on the very data we create, to continue to grow and learn, raises new questions around ownership of the data. And meanwhile, legislators around the world are struggling with how to manage all this and both protect society, but at the same time promote and encourage the investments in digital infra, which, as we know, can turbocharge those economies. I'm joined today, I'm glad to say, by an expert panel who are hopefully going to address some of those issues. They are Sarah Draper, General Counsel and Chief Risk Officer of Telehouse, Jill Stoller, Chief Privacy Officer at State Street, and Pilar Santamaria, VP for AI at SUSE, having recently joined from Google, where she was head of EMEA Cloud Solutions at Google. Perhaps we can just have some quick introductions, talk about your day jobs and the relevance to this. So, Sarah.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. So, I suppose in my role at Telehouse is a global data center operator. I'm based in the UK business. We're based around Docklands, so very much related to the city and the connectivity that's required for the big institutions there. My day job, well, I'm General Counsel, so I'm responsible for keeping us all safe, hopefully within the business from a legal point of view. I'm also the Chief Risk Officer, and that looks at all sorts of different things, including the changes to what's happening in our world. So AI, of course, the geopolitical issues that we've talked about earlier on today, some of the things we've heard about with the supply chains. I'm also the chair of the ESG subcommittee, so ESG is very close to my heart as well.
Jill.
Thank you. Jill Stoller. I'm the Chief Privacy Officer for State Street Bank. State Street is one of the largest asset managers in the world. Our clients are other financial institutions. We're very focused on providing technology solutions for those other financial institutions. Artificial intelligence has recently become the raison d'etre for all privacy professionals. Obviously, we're doing a lot of work internally around AI governance. So I sit on the AI Governance Steering Committee. I'm also doing work with the UK Finance AI Policy Committee, as well as volunteer with the Women in AI Foundation. It's very critical that we get more women representation within artificial intelligence, so that's the focus of the foundation.
Pilar?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for the audience. That makes sense to this event with your presence today. So I've been in the IT industry for plus 25 years, more years that I can recognize, and in AI for plus 11 years. So it's not the hype of ChatGPT why I'm here on AI. And previously worked for Google, Microsoft, Dell, and Cisco, so big technology players in growth and creating also new markets. I'm now with SUSE as VP AI. I'm responsible as a customer, so I need to choose the solutions, and I have two-in-one roles. I deal with all the internal consumption of AI, so I face regulation, data privacy, and I need to be compliant. And also I lead the products and solutions that the company generates. We are an open source leader, operating system leader for Linux traditionally, and we are investing heavily on allowing AI sovereignty for everyone with easy to use solutions. I'm also a member of as an expert of the European Commission, and also funded a non-profit organization on cybersecurity and on AI to bring back that sovereignty.
Thank you. So we're going to jump straight in and assume that everyone has some idea of what data sovereignty is. I'm sure we could spend a lot of time debating exactly what is meant by data sovereignty. But importantly, data sovereignty has been around for a while, possibly introduced as an afterthought initially. For the digital infra world, there are potentially two impacts. There's the operational impact and there's the investment impact. And I'd be interested in your views as a panel as to what that impact is on both of those. You're all in operational businesses, but you're also very invested in the digital infra world and the expansion of that world. So on both of those, where do you view data sovereignty? Does it even matter at all to the business? Sarah?
Okay. Gosh, there's a question. I think it's got to, because you've got to be compliant as a business. So, you're asking a chief risk officer whether or not it drives investment decisions. Well, of course, if you've got businesses that are cross-border, which I think most of us in this room probably do, and you've got rules about how you can move data, and with data sovereignty, how you can't move data, more to the point, if you need to do business in a jurisdiction, and that jurisdiction has rules about what you can and can't do with the data, then you have got no choice but to operate there somehow. So that either is through a third-party type arrangement, or you're building new infrastructure. And if you're building new infrastructure, all of the considerations that we've heard a lot about this morning around supply chains, connectivity, your ESG credentials, whether you can even get energy to where you want to be, they all have a sort of a say in that decision-making process. So I think it is very much at the forefront of some of those decisions and discussions that we've had.
And Jill, obviously you're very much in the financial sector, and there's even more regulation on the financial sector. So what's your perspective on that issue?
I mean, it very much depends on the data that you need to transfer, the data that is relevant for your organization. A lot of the areas where folks are running into troubles, where we had some jurisdictions putting in place very restrictive data localization regimes. And the terms data localization and data sovereignty are sometimes used interchangeably. They're really not the same thing. Data localization is some sort of regulatory structure where the data has to stay where it originated. And we've seen time and time again that these jurisdictions are running into challenges with international investment where, okay, if the data needs to stay localized in your jurisdiction, I'm not going to be able to invest there because that is going to be prohibitively expensive for me to set up mirror operations in your jurisdiction because you're not allowing me to port that data to a jurisdiction where I already have an operational footprint to process it. So that's really been the challenge for a lot of organizations is what data are they trying to regulate? How does that impact my business? And where do I need that data to be to function? And can I get it there?
And also what you're using it for, because latency and so the speed with which you can move it is a real issue. So that drives those decisions as well.
Absolutely.
So ultimately quite nuanced. Pilar, go on, please.
So basically, in regards to the first point, I always see AI in three questions. The first one would be, should you do a use case? Is that ethical? Is that right? And that is very much aligned with the European Commission Act. I think we are talking about things that we allow in the past that probably we wouldn't want to allow in the future in our lives. Nobody wants an AI to take decisions, key decisions in our daily life or the life of our families. Then, can we do it? Is that compliance? But we do that exercise anyway with things, aligned to GDPR and the previous regulations. And the third question is how we are going to do this. And I need to pass through these three questions every time I try to deploy a use case in my own company. That's the process that I follow. And this is not new and it's not led by the AI regulation. It's been there sometimes in a relaxed way, especially on the first question. And the industry learned that we cannot jump into the how without sorting out the first two questions. In the case of opportunity, I see this as an opportunity. At the moment, the disruptors of AI are being disrupted. And this is happening right now. We have seen the democratization of AI with Gen AI. I compare this, this is not happening, right? I compare this with a party. We get into a party, not voluntarily, we have been all forced to be into the Gen AI party, and we can only drink water. Why? Because Gen AI is being owned at the moment by a digital oligarchy. So if you see the concentration, they have created market and opportunities, but there is still a big concentration in terms of investment and market ownership. This is breaking up now. So the democratization and the sovereignty of AI is breaking these, let's say, monopolies. So we see that customers are shifting, according to customer surveys, to open source solutions because of control, after cost, because AI is not cheap, and we see also repatriation to local data centers. So we see repatriation in terms of going back to the levels of 2020, 43% of workloads versus 86% that we have currently. And this is according to a survey from Barclays to CIOs. So we see this trend happening, which is a big opportunity for us because we provide a solution that allows privacy by design, whether you run in a local data center, whether you run on-prem, or whether you run on your preferred cloud, but in your trusted environment. You are not forced to go to a public environment in the location where this provider forces you to be. The AI current solutions are not private by design, and they are not compliant by design, because platforms that deal with models for generative AI and machine learning automatization, when you get into those platforms, they export data and they don't allow multi-tenancy. The fact that they don't allow multi-tenancy forces you to be in a location. And normally, you cannot export the data and you don't get the consents to do that. So basically, you cannot use it. That has limited the use cases on generative AI. According to a Google survey across customers, the use cases are limited to use cases that don't require compliance. We have a huge market of use cases that require compliance in order for us to participate in this Gen AI party.
Well, I mean, there's a huge amount to unpack there, Pilar. And I mean, you're talking about AI driving potentially an increase in localization, this concept of privacy by design, and different use cases, some which don't require compliance and some which do. And I just want to focus a bit on the interrelationship between data sovereignty and AI. And first of all, just to consider whether or not we consider the data sovereignty laws potentially are a limiter on AI. Large language models, they rely on massive amount of data, and if we have restrictive data sovereignty laws, is that going to limit the availability of data that those models can continue to grow and learn from? Or actually, is that a price, it may be an impact, is it a price worth paying? Jill, do you want to start with that one?
Do you want my unfiltered opinion?
I always want unfiltered opinions. Panels are much more fun when they're unfiltered.
I think it's too late, right? I mean, if the stories are true and they've scraped the entire internet to train the large language models, it's too late. So what are you going to regulate now? Those models can't unlearn. So you either have to blow up the model, start over, and say, okay, we're going to do this in a compliant way. It's not possible. Or what? So that's the unfiltered version. I think we have to go in with our eyes wide open, right? So if you're going to be using one of these large language models as a foundational model for some Gen AI solution, we don't know yet what type of enforcement or regulation is coming. We've got an incredible number of copyright cases trying to make their way through the courts about the misuse of that data. We're just starting to get an understanding of what has been scraped and used. And I think what's going to happen, instead of And this is my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. This is very nascent. But I think instead of enforcement, which is just, a game of fines and sanctions, which mean nothing to a lot of these larger organizations, I think what you're going to see is an attempt to go a different route. Using synthetic data, for example, has been brought up as an option instead of using real life data of individuals to train these models. So you would have a model that's actually generating the synthetic data, and then you're training other models on that data that's being generated. So horses out of the barn, as they say.
Sarah, do you agree with?
Yeah, well, to an extent, yeah, I do. I mean, I wonder whether this is the start of the next generation of class actions. I mean, we saw after GDPR a huge influx of data, issues, challenges, court cases, breaches, et cetera, and from an investment point of view, people started to factor that into their investment cases, their ROIs, and whether or not, are we going to get a class action for what we're buying or what we're setting up? Is this the new investment case that you're going to have to put, okay, if we're going to build in X area, we're going to have to assume that if we're going to have AI in that building, that there could potentially be a class action against us for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, it is very new, as you've alluded to. So, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, there's a whole lot of lawyers just sending emails to the team saying, please look into this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. But there are two areas here that I face. One is whether the regulation will restrict the large language model. I think, this is deploying massively a technology that changes society. That is not compliance. We have seen that before, right? All the social networks. I mean, we don't have to look far away, But in AI, we are going to have a say, because in AI, we have disruption inside of the disruption. So that means that large language models are changing every day. Meta launched a model, then OpenAI launches 1 week after another model, and then you have in the market hundreds of large language models. So there is a big choice on large language models. And you can choose the large language model that provides the compliance you want. And there are two aspects in terms of the large language model. One is the key aspect here is the intellectual property. The output from the large language model will provide an output that can infringe intellectual property. And that is the
right person. The other industry that has started to use AI to detrimental effect is in insurance claims on the healthcare side. So where we have actual models that are making decisions as opposed to doctors or other medical personnel as to what claims get paid, what types of procedures are approved. Those types of things are where there's no human intervention in that process. This is leading to extremely detrimental outcomes, and with an aging population, post-COVID, this is, we're heading into a tsunami. So I think, there are reasons why that U.S. hands-off approach is a detrimental one.
So I've been given the sign that we're pretty much out of time, so I'm going to let Sarah have the last word, effectively. Or might not be the last.
So I think it's a clash of regulation, isn't it? And we've been facing a clash of regulations for many years, but it is increasing and the complexity is increasing. So to the question of what impact is it having on investment decisions, what impact is it having on companies, I think it is increasing cost, it's increasing complexity, it's increasing risk. And is it working? Well, I think we all have our own opinions on that, but there is a desperate need for clarity in this space, and we currently don't have it.
Okay, well, that's a shout out to all the legislators out there. We'll have to wait until the 4th of July to see what legislation we have in the UK. And obviously America's going through an election. In fact, it's a big election year everywhere. And I think it's a story that's going to run and run and run. We're at the very early stages of AI. Data sovereignty has been around for a while longer, but clearly there is some way to go. And we didn't even touch on ESG, but unfortunately we've run out of time. So all I can ask you to do is to thank the panel, and they'll be happy to take questions. Some of them else will have to run off. Happy to take questions outside. So thank you very much.
Thank you.